Hi everybody, this is Burke Lyle, and we are live. We are just past the Super Bowl, as today is Monday, February 3rd, so we are a day removed from the Super Bowl, and with the Super Bowl being over, that means the NFL season is over as well. So it's been really quite a season. I mean, to be honest, I thought about this all day today. It seems like it was just yesterday that it was September 5th that the season was starting. I mean, I remember right when this channel started, basically that was the beginning of the NFL season. And we are currently recording. It's kind of twilight right now. It is about 5:40 in the afternoon, less than 24 hours removed from the Super Bowl. So, with that, the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs. I repeat, our Super Bowl 54 champions, and it was really one of the great runs in NFL history. Since remember, this was a Chiefs team that was 6-4 at one point, and I did not think they were going to win the Super Bowl. In fact, the last time they lost a game, they lost to the Titans. It was back in Week 10, and that was really, I remember what I was doing right before Week 10. That was just a week removed from when I was at that Nationals parade. Really 11 days removed from when the Nationals won the World Series, and it was really the middle of the season. And I remember the whole turning point was that Monday night game when they beat the Chargers, and they didn't stop winning from there. They went on to win the rest of their regular season games and then their run in the playoffs. And for Coach Andy Reid, who had been coaching the Chiefs for 7 years, but took over the Eagles in 1999 by drafting Donovan McNabb. And the Eagles were fairly successful too. By the second year, they made it to the playoffs, went to 4 straight NFC Championship games, won one of them, but lost in Super Bowl 39 to the Patriots. And then you follow that out with then continuing to coach the Eagles. Still had some success. I remember they went to the NFC Championship game in 2008, lost to the Cardinals there, and then the Eagles did go to the playoffs a few times. You remember Michael Vick helped really kickstart the return of Michael Vick, huge factor behind that. But then really things started to change. Was fired by the Eagles after a down year in 2012. Took over the Chiefs in 2013. In came Alex Smith. They went to the playoffs right away, and then they went on to make the playoffs the next 3 years with Alex Smith as their starter. But what stands out to me and what they did is the Chiefs of Alex Smith. They went to the playoffs 3 times in 4 seasons of Alex Smith. They had a first round bye in 2016, but they lost to the Steelers in kind of a field goal battle type game. And that was it. And at that point in time, going to the draft, I've heard stories, and look, I've not read any post Super Bowl coverage yet. I will in the coming days, really coming hours and days, about how it was done. But they decided to go with Patrick Mahomes. They decided to draft Texas Tech quarterback Patrick Mahomes, which put up video game-like numbers at Texas Tech. Numbers that you'd be amazed if an NFL quarterback put them up over a full season. And that was the risk they were taking, since, again, the Chiefs, they were always good for a very long time. They were a good team. They had a lot of good seasons. Yet, they felt like they could not win a Super Bowl. And by drafting Patrick Mahomes, you knew his potential. If he could live up to his potential, they would be a Super Bowl contender. And they were right. So, lo and behold, Mahomes sits behind Alex Smith for a full season. And then comes in, takes over at the start of the 2018 season, becomes an MVP, wins the MVP, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, historically great season. And then comes back the next year and again, right around 4,000 yards, a little bit more, 26 touchdowns, so his numbers were down. But here's a moment in their season, kind of week 7, and I like to pinpoint time. So, from my time point of view, right after the Nationals won the pennant, yes, I've referenced the Nationals a lot, even on football shows at times. Week 7, Thursday night, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. It was from a QB sneak, dislocated kneecap. And at the time, I mean, granted, I wasn't watching that game. I was probably watching the Yankees-Astros game at the time. But from what happened is it appeared to be a dislocated knee, and you thought, I mean, your first thought is, what if he's out for the year? I mean, there goes that season, right? Well, again, the Chiefs treaded water. I think they went 1-1 with Mahomes out. I think they managed to hang on and win that game. I think they lost to the Packers, but they played them very closely, and then I think they beat the Vikings. So they survived a kind of down in the wire wins, and then they came back. Really, I give a lot of credit to the defense down the stretch from what happened. And then, obviously, they're in the Super Bowl, and then they win the Super Bowl. So again, Andy Reid, 61 years old, had to wait 21 years to win the Super Bowl. Think about Mahomes, who won it when he was so young. And are we seeing the next dynasty? Who knows? I mean, they could win another Super Bowl. They could go back and win next year. They ended the 2010s with a Super Bowl win. Do they kick off the 2020s with a Super Bowl win? And if they do, that means they become the first team since the Patriots, who beat Andy Reid in his only prior Super Bowl appearance, back in Super Bowl 39, 15 years ago, to win back-to-back Super Bowls. So win two Super Bowls in a row, which has not been done since then. So that would be interesting to keep an eye out on that and potentially monitor what happens with the Chiefs next year. Does Mahomes win another MVP and another Super Bowl? From what I see, and with the Chiefs, I mean, look, here's the thing. Mahomes is going to be the starting quarterback there for another 15 years if he can stay healthy. Right? So well into his 30s. And in that time frame, can they win 5 more Super Bowls? Can they be a dynasty? And look, players are going to come and go, right? Damian Williams, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the team in 5 years from now, even 2 years from now. Guys like Tyreek Hill are going to come and go during that time span. A lot of guys that on the team, or Tyrann Mathieu, or whoever, right? But this will be Mahomes' team. This could be like Brady and Belichick. And Andy Reid, given his age, is 61 years old. Look, he's not going to retire unless something shocking happened. But I feel like Andy Reid will not be the coach there throughout Mahomes' career in Kansas City. So that's a factor. So we kind of did a kind of a introduction. So now I kind of want to talk about the game and what happened. So first drive, the Chiefs get a 3-and-out. And then on the next drive, this looks a lot like the playoffs. Deebo Samuel had a 32-yard run on it, so it's kind of an end around, and with Samuel, they tend to do that a lot. I've seen it throughout the playoffs and the regular season. Deebo Samuel is very fast receiver who can take handoffs, jet sweeps, end arounds, those flip passes. And then on the second drive, so a field goal result, so they kind of go down the field. And here's kind of an interesting play. So they're kind of near the goal line. Mahomes has a 10-yard run. It originally is a first round, but he's hit so hard that he fumbles, and it's 4th and 1, and they go for it. They kind of do a tricky formation. I think it just kind of almost like they flip the formation, and Damian Williams gets a direct snap and gets a first down on the run, and then later on in the drive, they're on the 1. Mahomes does a option play where it would have been pitched to Damian Williams, but then scores on the touchdown run. So all of a sudden there, it is now 7-3. Chiefs. And on the next drive, former Washington Redskin, Bashard Breeland intercepts a pass from Jimmy G, his hit as he threw. And the Chiefs responded with a field goal. And then the Chiefs also converted on 4th and 1. Again, it was sort of like the goal line play. It was an option play. Mahomes got hit on the play, clearly gave himself up on an option play to Damian Williams. So it's 10-3, and there is about 9.5 minutes left in the second quarter. And then with 5 minutes left in the first half, the 49ers tie the game. It was Kyle Juszczyk, 15-yard touchdown reception. They ran the ball well. Both Mostert and Coleman contributed. Is Coleman the player of the game in the 49ers game, or in the game win against the Vikings in the divisional round, and obviously it was Mostert against Green Bay. And then Deebo Samuel showing up again on the drive. I think he had another nice run as well. So it's 10-10 at halftime. So at halftime, it's 10-10, and granted, I'm a neutral fan in this game. It's not like I'm rooting for the Nationals in the playoffs, or like I'm about to in a couple months be rooting for the Washington Capitals to bring another Stanley Cup back to Washington so I can go to another parade, as what Chiefs fans are going to experience in less than 48 hours, a parade. I am just watching the game as a fan like I would really any other game. I'm neutral. I'm not, this is not like it was before, so this is kind of a different experience for me. And then in the third quarter, Mahomes threw an interception to Fred Warner, second-year player. Warner is. So there's a turnover. And then with about 2:35 left in the third, since the Niners got a field goal early in the quarter, Raheem Mostert, of all people, no surprise, has a rushing touchdown. And then all of a sudden, it is now 20-10. And at this point in time, you're late in the third quarter, I'm thinking, the 49ers are going to probably win the Super Bowl. And that appeared to be the case for a long time. And now, fourth quarter, I think it's kind of early in the fourth quarter, Mahomes throws an interception, so he throws another interception, and they're down by 10. I mean, they just need a field goal to get to 7, so right then and there, you're thinking, okay, it's a costly turnover by Mahomes. Now, all of a sudden, the Niners should win. I mean, it's the fourth quarter. You have a 10-point lead. Just move the ball, run the clock out, make it very hard for the Chiefs to win. Yet, they punt the ball. And here's really a play that's huge. There's about 7 minutes left. So you're more so or less about halfway through the fourth quarter. Deep 44-yard pass to Tyreek Hill. That's his strength. Basically beat the coverage there. And all of a sudden, you're now in the red zone. I mean, you're still down by 10, but it's third down. If you don't get that, I mean, do you punt, right? Or you're just aggressive and go for it? But that was a huge play of the game. That was really a turning point type play right then and there. Since you go from, I'm sure I did not look at the win probability, but I'm sure it went slightly up. Certainly went down for the Niners. And then Travis Kelce, who has been huge in the playoffs, especially against Houston, had a 1-yard touchdown reception. So now, for about 6 minutes left, it is 20-17. Still the 49ers have the lead. And you know how they respond, which this will be a critical thing to talk about kind of later on. They have a 3-and-out. So now, all of a sudden, the 49ers, who once again, can just run some clock out, give the Chiefs less time. You know what happens? They fail to move the ball down the field again. So another 3-and-out. So now the Chiefs have about 5 minutes to score, and on that drive, it's kind of interesting, and I kind of talked about it in the pregame show. I was wondering, what is it going to be like with Richard Sherman, who I thought played okay last night until late in the game. It's one-on-one Richard Sherman, who, again, here's the thing about Sherman, is as great in coverage as basically that side of the field. You're never going to throw the ball to Richard Sherman. I mean, you're just not going to, especially if it's short. But if it's deep, which I think we saw that against the Packers, certainly one of the times, if you have Richard Sherman one-on-one, I feel like that's his weakness, one-on-one coverage. I think he needs help. I think he needs a safety to help him out, or another corner. Either way, you need, if Sherman's man-to-man, especially going deep, you need double coverage. Well, Sammy Watkins caught a pass for 38 yards, so you go from about midfield, now all of a sudden you're really into the red zone, and you're on the Chiefs, or 49ers 10-yard line. Excuse me, you're on their 10-yard line, so you're just 10 yards away, so now you're even closer to scoring. And you know what happens? Damian Williams, 5-yard touchdown reception, gives the Chiefs the 24-20 lead. So they've scored. So now they go unanswered. And here's another drive. So the Niners get one last opportunity. It's 3rd and 10. Jimmy G overthrows Emmanuel Sanders on a deep pass. And looking at the replay of that pass, it appeared to be a look. It looked like it was going to be potentially a. If he would have caught it, it would have been a touchdown. I think that's right. At the very least, they would have had the ball into the red zone inside the 5. But it was just overthrown, and since Sanders was open, it appeared to be a blown coverage completely. That's a throw you'd like to have back. Since again, you look at that throw, yes, deep passes. I mean, obviously, if you look at the analytics and Pro Football Focus, like you look at the passing maps and short, medium, deep. Obviously, deep passes are the lowest percentage passes since they're the hardest to convert accurately. But still, that's a throw you have to make, especially if somebody's open. And they failed to do that. I mean, you think about the Tyreek Hill play earlier. That's a deep pass you make. The play where Emmanuel Sanders couldn't catch a deep pass or Jimmy G overthrows him. That's a play you don't make. There's a difference between making a play and obviously not making a play. So now it's 4th down, and Frank Clark, who again was in Seattle, came in a trade, basically kind of swapped him for D Ford, kind of but not really. Ford went to San Francisco. Clark comes in to Kansas City and gets the game-winning sack that basically doesn't quite seal the game, but really there's a turnover. And then here really, and this will be a good debate to talk about after we're done recapping the game. Damian Williams, 38-yard touchdown run. That's it. So now it's 31-20. 21 unanswered points in the 4th quarter. I mean, the reason why I wrote it down, since normally I don't always do that, why I wrote it down, when I just kind of going through the Super Bowl again, when the Chiefs scored that field goal, when they scored their 10th point, the reason why I made a note of that is I wanted to say how long they went without scoring. I mean, they went from about, 9-10 minutes in the 2nd quarter all the way to about halfway through the 4th quarter. So you think about it, that's about 10 minutes, 25. That's approximately 35 minutes without scoring. That's more than half a game. That's more than a half for the Chiefs without scoring. And then all of a sudden, in a span of, 5, 6.5 minutes, whatever, 6.5 minutes, in a span of about 6 minutes, they score 21 points on just 3 straight drives. I mean, that's the Chiefs' offense right there. The same offense that we saw against Houston in that 2nd quarter where it was bang, 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 bang. Or against Tennessee in the 2nd quarter, right before halftime or whatever. Or that offense we have seen a lot of the last 2 seasons, and now it has paid off. And then really what really sealed the deal officially is Kendall Fuller gets an interception. So Kendall Fuller, if you want to know any facts about him, that is the player that I think was also a 3rd-round pick that the Redskins, when they traded for Alex Smith, that is who they gave up. Kendall Fuller. And guess what? It pays off by winning the Super Bowl. So there you go. 2 former Redskins had both of the Chiefs interceptions. So if you're a DC sports fan or you're a Redskins fan or whatever, and I'm gonna have to listen to Grant and Danny. I'm gonna have to listen to the rewinds of DC Sports Talk Radio later on. I would just be shocked if they were not mentioned, which I think they will be mentioned. So good for them. Who I think at one point in time, I think it was 2017, I think they were teammates in Washington for a couple years. And again, so there you go. How about that? And really for everybody on that team that won a Super Bowl, you feel great for them. And with that, the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl. So now let's talk about what went wrong for the 49ers. You know what? I think it's both teams, both sides. You don't get a stop. When you get that interception and you have a 10-point lead, and I talked about that earlier, and that drive you're supposed to run out the clock or chew up some clock. And you know what? Another thing. So Jimmy G threw 31 passes. The team ran 22 times. So Mostert, 12 carries, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel, 3 carries, 53 yards. And Tevin Coleman, 5 carries, 28 yards. You ran the ball only 22 times. You cut your rushing total in half. And you know what? You know what happened? Jimmy G, for the first time, going 20 of 31, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jimmy G, this is the first time in any game action since the Seattle game over a month ago, since the regular season, that Jimmy G really had to throw the ball. There was no reliance on Jimmy G, and when you finally asked him to throw the ball, I mean, sure, look, here's something that, you might have a thought of this. You could say, oh, Jimmy G, which is very unfair. Oh, Jimmy G is not Brady. Jimmy G can't win the big game. Jimmy G doesn't come up big in the fourth quarter. You could say that, but that's not the case. And his first full season as a starter, and granted, he had great support around him, had outstanding running. He had much better running than Mahomes ever had. Basically, could hand the ball off like he did in those previous games, running and defense. So again, what a sign is that Jimmy G has great support and doesn't need to take over games as much as, say, maybe Mahomes does or whatever. But this is on the whole team. But one thing I don't like is, and you can't blame Shanahan either. What about Robert Salah? He should have called better defense down the stretch, right? We're not going to blame Shanahan. We're not going to blame Jimmy G. This is a team effort that lost in the fourth quarter. Okay? This is on both sides of the ball, but still, run the clock out. Maybe run more or whatever earlier in the game. It worked so great earlier. I mean, the team had 22 rushing yards, 141 yards. That is almost 7 yards per carry. They didn't run enough. They had to run the ball more. But they went to throwing. And when they finally had to throw, when they threw, it didn't work. But granted, having a 10-point lead on both of those drives, when you have the 10-point lead, you have to move the ball. When you have the 3-point lead, you have to move the ball and chew the clock out, run out the clock. And they failed to do that. And even after that, when you're down 24-20, they couldn't move the ball either. That's 3 straight drives where they couldn't do anything on offense. And you know what? Same goes to the defense. You have a 10-point lead. Find a way to hold it. Find a way to stop a 3rd and 15 and not allow a 44-yard reception. Or how about helping Richard Sherman out and not allowing a 38-yard reception that puts them from midfield to the red zone? How about that? Or how about finding a way to stop Damian Williams before he runs into the end zone that basically ends the game? Find a way to get a stop. So that's on both sides. That's on everybody who's coaching the defense. That's on Shanahan calling the plays. That's on Salah calling the plays. That's on the cornerbacks and safeties who can't stop the deep pass. That is on everybody. That is a team effort. Why the 49ers lost. So yes, you could, after the foul, same thing 3 years earlier. So no, we're not going to blame the coach. We're not going to blame Jimmy G. We're not going to blame Richard Sherman. We're not going to blame Jimmy Ward, who lost Tyreek Hill there. We're not going to blame for not making that throw to Emmanuel Sanders earlier. Heck, yes, Shanahan should have ran more, obviously. That's on him. You know, not sticking to your game plan that works so well. And granted, this game was a lot closer than certainly the Packers game and especially the Vikings game. So yes, you did have to throw more, but they threw too much, in my opinion. They threw too much. I didn't like how much they threw. You know, when I looked at the stats, I didn't like the coaching. I didn't like the offensive coaching, and that's okay. But this is on the entire team. When a team loses, it's a team effort. Since it is very easy to blame the coach, it is very easy to blame the quarterback. But again, there's really no one GOAT here. It was a lot of different players to point to. And this is a Niners team that had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter in a Super Bowl, and they failed to hold it. They couldn't find a way to win the game. And the question with the Niners is, since we talk about, again, think about teams that lost in the Super Bowl, right? Patriots, Seahawks. The Patriots went on to win 2 more Super Bowls after that, and then went to 3 others, and then went to an additional third, right? The Seahawks have not gotten out of the second round, the divisional round, since then, right? Or you think about the Carolina Panthers, who were 15-1 then. They have played in just 1 playoff game since then. Or the Atlanta Falcons, they have won just 1 playoff game since then, and have not been back to the playoffs since 2017, right? Obviously, the Patriots coming back to win the heck, the Rams last year, who we thought were. I remember pre-game, before the Super Bowl week, they're comparing them to the Patriots and wondering, could they be the league's next dynasty? They didn't even make it to the playoffs this year. So you talk about Super Bowl losers, right? And sure, teams can come back from it. They can. The Patriots have lost Super Bowls and come back and have gone on to win them. How about the Patriots losing to the Eagles? How about the trying to think before that, the Broncos, when they lost to Seahawks, they came back 2 years later and won a Super Bowl. Very different team, obviously. Or whatever. So the list goes on and on of Super Bowl losers, right? Exactly. Some teams that have lost Super Bowls haven't been back since. Think about the Bills, who lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. They, in the last 25 years since then, they haven't come anywhere close to another Super Bowl. Or the Cardinals, who had a devastating... you could just go on and on and on. So the question is, looking at both teams, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my time on this. But at some point in time, I'm going to kind of right around probably sometime late February, early March, before free agency, I want to go through all the playoff teams. And this is just an idea I'm thinking of. I'm going to look at the free agents, notable free agents, and decide which ones are coming and going. But for this 49ers team, the question is, will they be back? I think they've built something really good. Now again, in that division, I think there'll be a lot of competition. You think about Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. They are starting to look up and coming. If they can get the defense figured out, if they can cut out the mistakes they're making that bad teams make, they could be a threat in the West in coming years. Sean McVay and the Rams just talked about. If they go through the adjustments of what went wrong this year and they come back, they could be back. Think about the Seahawks. Russell Wilson. If their defense can get better, healthy running backs, they could be a threat. I mean, the Seahawks were right with the 49ers for so much of the season, right? They look like one of the best teams in the NFL at times, right? Look at that West Division. The 49ers have a lot of competition upcoming next year. And the question is, can they win the NFC or the Super Bowl next year? Can they even win their own division? That is not a given. That is not a given. That division is going to be so strong next year. I think every game in that division is going to matter. And I'm not 100% certain if the NFC West next year could send 3 teams to the playoffs. I think it's going to be that strong. If you could send a 4th, if you had 8 teams, I think it could send 8. In the league at 8-team playoffs, I think 4 teams of that division have a shot to make it to the playoffs. Now, obviously, the 49ers are Super Bowl contenders. I think the Seahawks could be too. Even the Rams. coming back off a very down, disappointing year, and I think the Cardinals have a shot at the playoffs, right? So the 49ers, and you look at how strong the NFC is. The Niners, again, when you have to lose a Super Bowl like that, and you think, okay, it's going to be so hard to get back there and win it. Since that was their opportunity, right? I mean, what is the future of them? I think they do have a good future. And will Jimmy G win a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan? I don't know. I do not know. If they did come back and win a Super Bowl, I would not be surprised if they win a Super Bowl for the next few years. I think they can. But what is this team? Are they built to last? Is this going to last, or is this kind of a fluky year where something happens? Since what if Jimmy G crashes? What if the running backs decline? What if the defense declines, right? What if everybody declines next year and they're like the LA Rams, right? That's something to keep in mind. Now, for the Chiefs, who just obviously won the Super Bowl, so another debate I want to talk about is Super Bowl MVP. So obviously went to Mahomes. He had a rushing touchdown, and obviously he had two, as he threw for 286 yards, he had led two touchdown drives in the fourth quarter that obviously won the game. So the two interceptions kind of make me think, okay, committed two turnovers. So he clearly made some mistakes. But you think about the throws he made on those drives, including those deep passes to Hill and Watkins, right? Damian Williams, 17 carries, 104 yards, including 4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. I think the Super Bowl MVP, if this was me, I would have voted for Damian Williams. And the reason why is, well, obviously rushing for 100 yards, and he scored the game-winning touchdown. And not only that, he rushed for a touchdown that basically sealed the Super Bowl. Now, we go back to the goal line play where Mahomes decided to keep the ball. What if he pitches to Damian Williams and he scored a touchdown? I mean, look, obviously if you're a Chiefs fan, you don't care, right? And if you're Damian Williams, you probably don't, you just won the Super Bowl. I don't think you would care either, right? I mean, it's just the Player of the Game award, right? Obviously, Damian Williams is thrilled to be a Super Bowl champion. But what I'm doing is I'm advocating Damian Williams for Super Bowl MVP. So I think if Mahomes would have pitched it, I think he would have had 3 touchdowns in. I think it would have gone to Damian Williams. And I think Damian Williams deserves a Super Bowl MVP. Since, don't get me wrong, Mahomes, I mean, looking back, you'll say, wow, led 2 game-winning drives to win his first Super Bowl, just like Tom Brady did, or whatever, just like Joe Montana did in those Super Bowls, right? And it's obviously I give, but again, so Mahomes is Super Bowl MVP. I think it should have been Damian Williams. That's who I would have voted for. That is my opinion. The question is, anybody watching this video, so my question is, do you think it should have been Mahomes or Damian Williams? In fact, that would be a good question to poll out on Twitter and even on the Facebook. Okay. So here's another thing the Chiefs did. As I'm going to say this. So obviously, did the trends that we saw in the divisional rounds and conference championship games, since both of these teams had byes, did those same trends continue? For the 49ers, no. Their defense did not kind of collapse in the fourth quarter. It was really there from about late, kind of early on in the second quarter, all the way to midway through the fourth quarter. It was lights out. It was dominant. It looked like that 49ers defense, oh, they shut down Mahomes. Oh, they held the Chiefs to 10 points. Great. Oh, they beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Great. They didn't do it. They didn't finish. So, yes, that trend discontinued. The trend of the Niners being all run, that discontinued. The 49ers were not what they were meant to be. Run the ball and play defense. So that trend continued. This was a different Niners team that relied more on the passing game, and obviously the defense did not come through like it did so many times. It looked, you know what it looked like? It looked like what this Niners team, it looked like kind of what the Niners were kind of in December. Sort of like that. So, the Chiefs, they came from behind in every game, 24-0. My thoughts were against Houston, oh, it's over. Oh, they're going to lose. That's it. Or now you go on to Tennessee. Oh, they're down by 10 points in the second quarter. No problem. They just have 2 quick drives, just fly down the field and score. And then here we go again in the Super Bowl, down by 10 in the fourth quarter. Since again, and I talked about this playing behind, since obviously against the Texans, before we knew it, they had the lead again. And against the Titans, same thing. But against the 49ers, so talking about it going into the Super Bowl, obviously the 49ers had a better defense than what the Titans or the Texans had, especially the Texans. And against the Chiefs, or against the Texans, pardon me, and Titans, they were both in the fourth quarter. The Titans game was kind of midway through the second quarter, and Texans game early in the second quarter as well, so they had plenty of time. In this game, you're midway through the fourth quarter, and you're losing by 10, and not to mention, you gave the ball, again, the 49ers had the ball up by 10 in the fourth quarter. So obviously, give credit to your defense there too, who pretty much shut down the Titans after they had that 17-7 lead. And not only that, pretty much just shut down the 49ers late in the game in their final 3 drives. They did almost nothing. And this Chiefs defense that was so good down the stretch, huge reason why they went from a 6-4 team, wondering if could the Raiders somehow win the NFC West, to then at the very last minute with the Patriots, with their play down the stretch, getting a bye where we thought for the longest time that they'd probably just play in the wild card round, to then in the playoffs. So what the Chiefs team did is, I was wondering, could they come back against the Niners? And for the longest time I thought, no, they can't. This is different. Well, the Chiefs were the same team. They came back throughout the playoffs. And again, trailing by 10 points or more 3 straight games in the playoffs, I don't think that's ever happened before. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't think that's ever happened. I mean, many teams down 24-0, that could have just been it. That could have been done, season over. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. And again, they found a way to win the Super Bowl. They came back in every game. So just tremendous credit on them finding a way to win the Super Bowl. And are they the greatest team ever? No, they're not the greatest team ever by any means. They were, in fact, I wouldn't say they're underdogs, but they were 6-4 in the middle of November. They were right there with the Raiders. The Raiders were right there with them, and they got hot down the stretch. You didn't think they were going to get a first-round bye. You thought they'd have to settle for a wild card. Well, the Patriots lost that game, and all of a sudden you have a first-round bye. And then obviously look flat. You find a way. And then you just stop whatever the Titans were. That team that beat you. You got your redemption on the Titans. And then it's just a remarkable story. I can't wait to read about this team. Can't wait to meet. There might be some NFL film stuff to watch on this team. Obviously, the America's Game, which I decided I'm going to watch every America's Game from the 1970 Chiefs 50 years ago to those 49ers teams that won the Super Bowls yet have not won since. So that's going to be fascinating. That's going to be a fascinating off-season project. And look, to be honest, I would have been happy to see the 49ers win. Obviously, when a team wins a Super Bowl, there's always a remarkable story to it, right? And it would have been so much fun to talk about. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy G, how they did it. Well, I'm just as glad to talk about the Chiefs, since again, for a very long time, I mean, I remember on numerous occasions they were a very bad team. I mean, they won 2 or 3 games numerous times that I can remember within the last 10 or 12 years at times. And here they come, Pat Mahomes, Super Bowl champions. So yeah, it's getting dark. I think I need to wrap up soon. I've been talking for about 40 minutes on kind of the Super Bowl and what happened. And yeah, it was a fun NFL season. I mean, it was a great way to close out the top tens. I mean, yeah, I thought the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl for the longest time. I thought so were the Saints going into the playoffs. Those predictions I got wrong. And here we are, you know. It was just so much fun seeing the 49ers and the Chiefs down the stretch and in the playoffs. I mean, again, this January stretch where you get to watch the playoffs and see a Super Bowl champion be crowned, it's one of the best sports periods of the year. I mean, you think about the best sports periods of the year, I think it's January, March and March Madness, not knowing what the heck's going to happen. May and June, you know, when you have Major League Baseball. But in addition to that, you have teams going to the NBA and Stanley Cup Finals and all of that within days of each other. Within a few days of each other, you get to see somebody raising the Stanley Cup and the trophy. That's a great time of sports. Obviously, October is phenomenal, seeing MLB teams and their runs and how they win the World Series. That is so much fun to see. And then obviously this. So those are probably the three best sports times of the year, really. Four, right? Can you see teams win championships in pro sports? There's nothing like it. And it's been fun talking football all year. From, you know, I remember back in September when this channel launched, you know, talking about various things throughout the year, you know, making videos. It's been fun to then stepping out in October to see the Nationals run during this NFL season. I mean, if I want to talk about October in the NFL, I'm not the right person. I don't know very much about October football, but I do know a lot and do pay a lot of attention to January football. So that was a lot of fun just going through this journey. And again, about a month ago, the playoffs were beginning. There were 12 teams. Here we are, the Super Bowl champions. So I'm going to take a break from talking about football. I may not talk too much football if a big story kind of breaks out. As soon as the next few days or within next week, I will talk about it. It'll be more of a regular podcast format. Obviously, free agency is coming in March. But for now, I'll start getting ready for baseball. I'll kind of really soak in the Nationals even more now, since it's February, since they're getting back to spring training, and they're getting ready to defend their title. So that's upcoming. It's really the transition to baseball. And obviously, I still got the NHL and the NBA to focus on. You know, we're getting closer to March Madness now. We're about 6 weeks away from that. I can't wait to do that episode. So it's just been fun talking football all year. I've really enjoyed it. Obviously, for the first time in a long time, I'm not going to be thinking about football during the week. I'm not going to be going through football games, you know, going through 10 games a week or whatever like I was. So it's been fun. And obviously, you know, it's going to be fun. I really want to do this again next year. You know, hopefully I'll have as much time as I did in the previous 3 seasons to really go through the NFL. Next season, I'm looking forward to doing it again. It's going to be fun, and you know, this is why I make these videos. Obviously, I want to make money doing this. I want to do this for a living. But you know why I do this? I love sports. I love the NFL, MLB. You know, it's so much fun doing this. So just, again, it's been a great NFL season. Thank you for everybody that have watched these YouTube videos. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy watching these videos as much as I enjoy talking about these. But the NFL season's over. There are other sports to talk about. It's time to move on. But I just want to say thank you, and as always, we will see you next time in whatever we're talking about. I don't know for sure yet.